What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to preview NHL 20. Now, NHL 20 releases on the PS4 and Xbox One on September 13th. So, here's the deal with this game is I am a long time fan of the NHL franchise, okay? Am I necessarily the biggest fan of annualization and the fact that they come out every year and the improvements from year to year, kind of range from being really good to definitely not what I expect. That is my general kind of analysis of NHL, but I've been supporting this game franchise since NHL 10. I truly love it. I care about it. And so any criticisms I may bring up in this video in the future for this franchise, I'm doing it out of love because I truly do love hockey in general. I love watching hockey, and I love playing this video game. And I'll start off with what I like. I like the changes they're making. I talked about it before they even announced, the 5 things. They announced the 5 improvements, right? The goalie, kind of how they read plays and how they direct plays, the sticks, all those kinds of the transitions, those 5 things there. Before that even happened, I had talked about, funny enough, I talked about in other videos, how these sports games always come out and they always say, here's 5 things we want to improve and we're going to show you them. And what I've always said is, if what you don't like about the game from the last year, if that's like a small thing and it's not on the list of 5 that they say they're improving, you have like a coin flip odd of them either having included that or not. So if I don't like a specific feature about NHL 19 and it's not on their 5 things they're fixing for NHL 20, it's kind of up in the air whether or not it'll actually be fixed for the game. I find that kind of funny. At the same time, it's a little bit alarming, right, that they really do focus on 5 things. But what I will say is the 5 things that they're fixing are massive. They're big. They are more than just things. Again, like the transitioning and the way that the skaters are actually, kind of thinking and reacting. And just the categories of those 5. The amount of items, the amount of actual small things that you can put in those 5 are a lot. So, yeah, they are 5 things that they're fixing, but really it's a lot more than that, and I like that. This is one of the only years I can truly tell you that I think that just even though it's only 5 things, I feel like they're going to fundamentally make the entire game better. That a lot of small things, a lot of small gripes with these games are going to be fixed because of those. And ultimately, I've talked about it with sports games in the past. I've previewed Madden over the last 2 years, and I'm not a Madden player, but I can talk about that aspect because of NHL, in that when you play a game as much as players play these sports games, if you buy NHL, if you buy Madden, if you buy, Call of Duty tends to get, kind of put in the same category for some reason, but it is kind of true. With certain games you buy, and it's just kind of known from like the gaming audience, it's just kind of like a thing that you play that game like a lot. If you buy this year's Madden, that may be your most played game of the year. You may not buy more than like 5-6 other games. So, but the point is, Madden more than a lot of people. Okay, I know the game of NHL more than a lot of people would because I bought it and I've played it. So the people, and I would even argue that the people that are playing it nonstop, the people that are streaming it, the people that are kind of known for playing it, people like me that have bought literally 10 times NHL, literally for a decade, every single year I've bought it, I know how this game runs. I can spot the small things that I need to, like, there's things that get me upset in this game because there are smaller things that I like point at and say, man, I hope one day they'll get to this and they'll fix it. And again, if it's not on their list of things to do for the next year, it's not going to get fixed, and that does suck. But I think the problem with sports games, and the thing that you have to look at with sports games, is how much those smaller things change, because you're not buying the game. It's not a 2-year life cycle. It's not a 3-year life cycle. Like the life development of them actually developing the game. And I feel like it just gets held to a different standard than normal games. When I'm buying Death Stranding, say for PS4, I just think about it differently than NHL. NHL, there's kind of a standard I'm thinking of how much improved is it than NHL 19. And you have to think that with annual games. You have to think, is it worth me buying it? If it's nothing more than just a roster update, I won't buy it because I literally could have gotten last year's version. I may have even gotten 2 years. Now, I have always said that if you skip a year of NHL and you come back, it'll be massively, you'll look at it and you'll be like, wow. And that generally is how it goes. It sucks, and I don't blame the developers at all. I don't, because I do believe, try their hardest, and they only have 1 year, and I think they have less. They probably have like 9 months to implement things. Right now, they're probably working on NHL 21, and that sucks because that game comes out literally in another year, 1 year, and that game will be out, and they're working on it right now, and they only have a year. So it's not their fault. It really isn't. But if it's nothing more than a roster update, why get it? It needs to have those changes. It needs to actually be better than the version before it. Otherwise, you'll just get the version before it. And it's the problem that really all of these sports games have. With that being said, I believe NHL 20 is the closest out of all of these NHL games we've had so far. I think NHL 20 is the closest to real hockey that we've gotten. I truly, and I feel like I say that every year, but I really do believe it for NHL 20. The main thing for me that has always been a problem is the rink size. It's too big. And really there should be less room to maneuver when you're a player with the puck. Just in general, the ice needs to be cut in half, width and length. And what I think that would then do, though, is make the game something completely different. You wouldn't have as much room to stick handle. You wouldn't have as much room to transition and move. And literally, I think the fundamental game itself, how you play it, would completely crash, and they'd have to redo it. And I think that's the reason why they've never done it. But that's always been one of the biggest gripes to me about. I just wanted to throw that in there. That's been one of the biggest gripes for me of these hockey games since the very, very first one. Is I was like, the players are too small or the ice is way too big, and that's always been a problem. But to me, I can truly tell you, though, that NHL 20 looks like a big improvement. NHL 19, maybe I just said NHL 20 was the most realistic. NHL 19, I believe, is right now the best hockey that you can play. Okay, I really do feel like it feels the most real, where if you have a person like maybe over the age of 60 or 65, you could maybe convince them that it's a real game. I truly do believe that. And NHL 20, I feel like hopefully can be the same thing with those improvements and just take that next step. And I'm always looking for the next step with these games, and I feel like with the improvements or what they want to, and I shouldn't say with them because we don't know. I mean, these things could still be fundamentally broken. Is the penalty still as absolute much of a joke as they currently are, that if you press for the poke check, you immediately get a tripping penalty, that if you stick lift, you immediately get a high sticking penalty or a slashing penalty? Like, are those things still there? Because those things are still absolute jokes, and I feel like they'd be rather easy to fix. But if they're still there, that still hurts the overall product. And here's the thing. If you, I don't know, like, I feel like that's not a big deal to some people. But if you actually play the game, if you play this game weekly, if you play this game daily, that's a major problem. And so I feel like you can relate to that kind of small, because if you just say that to a casual player, they may say, well, what's the big deal? Well, it's a big deal if you're playing it daily or weekly and it constantly comes up. It's just like maybe a multiplayer feature in a shooter game. That could be, and if you play that game 3 hours a day, let's say, and you will definitely have problems with it, that if you told me and I play it once every 2 weeks, I would say, well, that's no big deal. Like, what does that even matter? But it matters to you because you play it so much. And I guess you could argue that's the case for literally any game. But I feel like annualization games, sports games in particular, they have the biggest problem with that, or at least that's one of the things that I have seen the most out of. And finally, like, the last thing I want to say about this game is the release date. Okay, September 13th, same day as Borderlands 3, also 3 days after Gears 5. It's a sports game. It sells primarily in Canada. It's the least selling sports game of EA. Okay, FIFA is the biggest one. Madden is next. So it's not like these games ever sell, absolute massive copies in the first place. It is a little alarming, though, the release date. However, I feel like every single year I say it. I feel like every single year NHL releases on the same day as some other behemoth. I believe it released back, whatever the 2017 version was. that game released, I believe, the same day or same week as Destiny 2. So, I mean, you just have that throughout time that they just release in bad times. I don't think that overall hurts it because if you're going to buy NHL, you're going to buy it. Most likely, you're outside. You're not going to, if you're buying NHL, you're not necessarily buying Borderlands or Gears. And if you're buying Borderlands and Gears, you're not necessarily buying NHL. So I don't know if the release date necessarily hurts it, but in terms of coverage on the channel, that makes it more difficult on me because I'm going to be covering Gears. I'm going to be covering Borderlands, and I want to cover NHL on the channel as well. So that's the end of this preview. I think this game overall does look much improved. I think it looks a lot better. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to playing it. Again, we're going to have coverage on the channel the week that this game comes out, like that weekend and into the next week. Mainly that next week will be a lot of NHL videos. So let me know in the comments below, guys, what do you think about NHL 20? Is there any videos you want me to cover on it as we get closer and when the game comes out? Let me know about that as well. Make sure you guys subscribe and hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And thank you, as always, for watching, and I hope to see you on the next game preview.